Welcome to the Money Podcast from Finder.com.au, Australia's most visited comparison site. The Finder Money Podcast is your weekly dose of finance and consumer news, tips, and tricks without the boredom.
Greetings and salutations, podcast listeners. Welcome to the Finder Money Podcast. I'm your host, Mark. With me each and every time is the wonderful Adam Smith.
Hello, hello.
And welcoming also to the stage, the wonderful Liz Barry.
Hello, hello.
Copycat.
How
Come up with some original material.
I didn't know what to say.
I've been workshopping hello, hello for like days now. And here you come and you step all over my shit. Like,
what I do.
Come on, Liz.
It's what I do.
Don't argue in front of the kids, guys.
I know how stand-up comedians feel when like people steal their bits.
Ooh, that's a big no-no. It's a big
It really
no-no.
is.
Well, I'm still okay that I did it. I'd do it again.
Yeah, nice one, Dane Cook.
How are we all today?
Yeah, feeling pretty good.
Yeah?
I was feeling good until that bit of unpleasantness. But you know what? I think I can move past it. And
For the listeners, you'll do it.
we can still have a crack-a-lackin' podcast. Ooh, how's it feel?
Adam does feel strongly about the word crack-a-lacking.
Right before we went to air, Liz actually said, "Let's get crack-a-lackin'," and I hoped that was the last time I would ever hear that phrase uttered for the rest of my life. But if she's gonna steal my bits, then
I'm definitely going to say that every podcast now. That's going to be my new entry.
Yeah, this is we're breaking some new ground here.
yeah,
This is definitely like look behind the scenes, behind the curtain
yeah.
of the Find a Money podcast.
So
Perhaps
for
we
the
should start again.
yeah, so
do you want to start again?
yeah, so for the 5 of you who haven't turned this off in disgust,
Yes, we do have some actually helpful things to talk about today, centering around finance. So today we have. It actually is a rare treat. I always say it's a rare treat, but this time it actually is a rare treat because we have 2 guests coming in, Liz. Do you want to explain who we have coming in?
Yeah, we do. We have 2 people from Grow Super, so I'm actually really excited to chat to them because we haven't talked about Super too much on this podcast, and they actually have a really, really cool product. So, I mean, I'll let them explain it.
Yeah.
But it's actually a really kind of innovative new product, and I've heard Josh from Grow Super is one of the people who's coming in today talk about it before, and it gets you excited about Super. So, yeah, I'm very excited.
that's really cool. I do have to say though, when you said that we would have a rare treat for our guests, I was thinking that like you meant actually rare, and it'd be like a couple pandas or something.
That's next week.
Yeah, to
Ooh.
get that rare classification. Yeah, well, maybe we should sort that out for next week. Maybe we should get Santa Claus in.
We should. It's almost Christmas.
Talk about toy workshop budgeting
Yeah,
or something.
labor costs.
Yeah. It's like working conditions.
Yeah,
How does
elven working
Yeah,
conditions.
it's a terrible business model he's got when you think about it.
Well,
Like-
actually, they do everything, but I don't even think they're paid.
yeah, and well, they just give the toys away for free.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's actually the worst business model. You
It's a
could possibly
terrible
think of.
business model.
How does he keep himself solvent?
Honestly, I do not get it. Like
He rents out the sleigh throughout the year.
For
or
billionaires to use to like travel places.
he also sells drugs.
Lots and lots.
Yeah. You heard it here first, people.
They've alienated the children.
I know. A fair bit of magic is used during the whole toy building phase as well. So maybe that also takes a bit of the pressure off. Maybe the elves are just doing it for fun.
Yeah, maybe. I don't think so. But
The work is its own reward.
Exactly.
It's an unpaid internship, but it's going to open up a lot of opportunities down the road. It'll look really good on their LinkedIn profile.
Looks really good on your resume. That's what my mum always used to say about working at McDonald's.
yeah, my mum said that too, and I was
Where
like,
do they find that information out from?
I don't know, but I don't have it on my LinkedIn.
That's probably held you back from a lot of jobs. They were
sure.
looking,
I
it's
know,
like,
right?
she never worked at McDonald's? Ooh, hard pass.
Not getting the CEO role.
Yeah, almost why I didn't get hired here. They're like, look, there's no McDonald's experience, so
I had my first job was working at a car wash, so I don't know if that qualifies as good or bad first working experience. I literally, the only task that I had was to wash wheels. It wasn't even the whole car. It
you
was
weren't
just the
allowed
wheels.
to wash anything.
Yeah.
else.
Yeah,
The-
no.
Yeah, not the whole car, pal. These are fruits you must not taste. You got to work up to that.
Yeah.
The guy's like, I've been here 20 years.
Old
Like,
Gil.
Yeah, you think you can just dive right into washing the whole car?
Well,
Greenhorn.
what's a greenhorn? So,
On that note,
on that note, yeah. So we definitely have an awesome episode planned with Grow Super. So stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, let's tackle a bit of the goings on in the world of finance and other related fields, shall we?
yeah. So last week or the week before, I think it was, comprehensive credit reporting got mandated. So basically, midway through next year, the big four banks will have to share more of your data, which will be listed on your credit file. And Equifax actually released some information that shows that Australians are likely to be better off under the new comprehensive credit reporting
Ooh,
rules.
that's good to know.
Nice, yeah.
Yeah. So, comprehensive credit reporting, while only 27% of financial services accounts currently have this data loaded, it's actually created positive credit history for 980,000 Australians that previously
Wow.
had no credit history.
Wow, how about
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, and so for Australians that have applied for credit in the past 3 months, those with comprehensive credit reporting data in their credit files actually have a higher average credit score.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
Yeah, so it's really good. So we can put the link on the page, and you can have a look at the different products and how much credit scores have increased. But for an example, people who have applied for a credit card in the previous 3 months and have that more comprehensive data included on their file. The average credit score went from 634 to 669. Yeah.
Interesting. That's a nice little, bit of points there for...
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It could be the difference between, having an average credit score to having a good credit score, or having
Right.
good to excellent. So it's actually, it's pretty important.
Ooh, I think I need to check mine now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you should.
Ooh.
Well, it'll be interesting, I think, checking it now and then checking it in 6 months when it's likely that you'll have more data included on your file.
Yeah. And I suppose it really does make sense because, on the whole, the majority of people do try and pay everything on time, do try and do the right
Yeah.
thing. So this is just better for them, really.
Exactly. And if you're not paying everything on time right now, start doing it, because then you'll have 6 months of on-time repayments and it'll actually work in your favor.
Yeah. So is it retroactive? I wonder if say, for example, if a bank has been collecting your data
They have, yeah. So they'll be required to share. So they have all that data internally, but they'll be required to share the last 2 years of your repayment history information with Equifax and with all the other credit
So
reporting
it's only
agencies.
2 years.
Only 2 years, yeah.
Ah, right.
Yes.
Interesting.
Very interesting. Very exciting.
Yeah. It's cool that we're, able to talk about this as it's happening.
Yeah, I know. It's pretty cool. Well, it's actually, they introduced it in 2014. So
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
we've
Yeah.
been waiting this whole time.
With breathless anticipation. Honestly, I can't believe it's finally here.
I know.
It's like all our Christmases have come at once.
You say that, but I'm actually super excited.
I'll tell you what else people are excited about is property still, right?
Ooh.
We're getting a lot of signals that the property market is really slowing down, and in some capital cities, including our own lovely harbor city, beginning to come off the burn, so to speak, and actually seeing property prices edge down. But that has done little to dampen the spirits of Australians looking at the property market. So a Mortgage Choice survey found that 64.3% of the people polled said that they expected the Australian housing market to perform at least as well as it has in recent years, if not better.
Oh, wow.
Really?
Yeah. So that's a pretty big result when we've seen kind of contradictory data out there.
Yeah, a lot of it, in
Yeah.
fact.
Quite a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. But people are still confident. And you got to think that confidence is only going to be positive for the property market.
Yeah,
So-
interesting. That kind of is at odds with I don't know if you guys have seen the LinkedIn post that's going around, basically talking about the implosion of the Australian economy.
Oh, that's not good.
Yeah.
Any more info on that?
No,
No, that's it.
it's a really long piece. I can't remember which news outlet I was reading, sort of like a summary, but they said basically if you want to read the full thing and you have a spare 2 days, but it's just really in depth.
The thing is, though, that, there have been prognosticators saying this for ages and ages, basically ever since the GFC, which we coasted through, and
Right.
we're the only OECD country not to go into recession in a single quarter. And ever since then, there have been these calls that, okay, the Australian economy is about to go off a cliff. It's about to happen. And it's like, the thing is, to that old saying, a broken clock is right twice a day. Like, you say this long enough,
Yes.
and of course you're going to be right eventually,
Yeah.
because that's the economy works in cycles like that.
Yeah.
Can I just say I've never heard that broken clock thing, and it's actually really clever.
Yeah, there you go. Pull that out of your back pocket when you
I
want to.
will. So Adam sits across from me in the office, and I'll just be saying it all day.
Extra loud so we
I've
can
got
Yeah.
that to look forward to. Yeah, you'll be on the phone with someone like, well, a broken clock is right twice a day. I don't care if it's relevant to our conversation. I just thought you should know that.
But it was interesting. I'm trying to share it.
I'm just trying to share part of my life with you. No, you're a recording. But anyway, yeah, I always kind of take it with a huge grain of salt
Yeah.
when I see those things, because it really is. It's like there's this professor, this property pundit, Steve Keen.
Yes.
And look, I've talked to Steve Keen before. He's a lovely guy, and he's very, very smart. So I'm not trying to down on his viewpoint at all. But he's been calling for the Australian housing bubble to burst for about the last 10 years. And it's like, if you say this long enough, eventually you're going to be right.
Right.
Yeah.
So
He lost a bet, didn't he? And he had to climb.
he had
a
walk
mountain or something?
backwards to
Walk backwards to where?
Mount.
He walked backwards up a mountain.
I don't know. I didn't know he walked backwards up it.
Yeah.
He walked backwards.
He had to walk backwards
How would
to
you
it,
ever
I think.
agree to that?
Kushi, the one with the K and the Z.
Australia's highest mountain?
Kushiuku, however you say it.
Yes.
Anyway,
Kosciuszko?
that's the one. Yeah. So I think it was a bet with Christopher Joy.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Those crazy economists.
I know they get pretty nutty. Let me tell you, you ought to see them on the Reserve Bank board retreat.
As we spoke about.
Yeah, what happens there stays there.
Everyone puts their phones in a bag.
And their keys in a bowl, if you know what I mean.
So, to prepare us for our little chat about super later on, some interesting research came out from the Responsible Investment Association of Australasia, which found that 9 out of 10 consumers expect their super or other investments to be invested responsibly and ethically. A lot higher than I thought, 9 out of 10.
Well, I would see. I haven't actually looked at what my super fund, where they invest my money, which
Where
is
they
actually
put
quite terrible. But like, I would just have the assumption, have the trust that they're doing, the right
right
thing, and
thing.
they're not investing in, nuclear weapons or anything.
Yeah,
Exactly, yeah.
we're investing in a company that forces orphans to kill rhinos.
Well, that's the thing. I'm just like, you'd never know, because I think the majority of people would have no idea where their super is.
Yeah, well, and that's actually interesting that you mentioned that. So there's actually a way that you can check the most ethical super funds. I'll put a link to it in our notes page, but it's also in the story. It's called responsiblereturns.com.au. And basically, it shows you, what the ethical super funds are. But I just thought it was interesting that it was that high. And I also think 9 out of 10 Australians expect their super investments to be invested responsibly and ethically. Sometimes responsible might not necessarily mean ethical. It might.
One person's ethics might not line up
Exactly.
with another's.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true, because there's some people who would consider a certain investment ethical that, one of us might consider wholly unethical.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
And the good thing about the tool is that it allows you to say, like, okay, what are the things that are most important to me? And then you can, and it'll sort of find the fund based on that. And 4 out of 5 Australians would consider switching their super if the fund strategy didn't align with their values, which I think is pretty sort of self-explanatory. But millennials are the most concerned. They're 75% more likely to invest in a super fund which considers environmental, social, and governance issues.
Those dang millennials
Yeah.
caring about things.
I know.
They're ruining
Caring.
super.
It's honestly, that's you guys' generation's big mistake, is caring about stuff.
Adam doesn't care about nothing no more.
We never made that mistake. Yeah, groovy.
Okay, so I'm feeling suitably informed, as I say each and every time. I'm done with news.
I'm done with it for the rest of the week.
Yeah, it's the end of the week as we're recording this, and I'm ready for the weekend, which
Well.
means I'm ready for a bit of funny money. Make me laugh.
Okay, so first of all, I want to say, we were just talking about how you're ready for the weekend. Of course, everyone knows that Loverboy song. Everybody's working for the weekend. When I was a kid, I thought, like, in my head, it meant everybody's working on the weekend. And I thought, man, that's a real downer. Like, everyone has to work on the weekend.
How long did
Being
you
an
think
adult
that
sucks.
for?
I don't know. I was a small child when that song came out. Cut me some slack. Probably until I was in my 20s. I don't know.
Probably until like yesterday.
I spent literally about like 36 years thinking that Steve Winwood was singing "Bring Me a Pile of Love" rather than "Bring Me a Higher Love." So,
Pie of love.
a pile of love.
pile
A
of
pile of love.
Pie of love would be great.
Pie of love would be. Yeah.
But I thought just a whole
Sounds
big
tasty.
pile. Just bring me a big old pile of love. You can toss it in the spare bedroom on the coats. Okay. So anyway, so British police right now are looking for a man who stole a suitcase containing $1.3 million worth of gems.
That's mine.
Right.
Ooh.
Yeah. But here's the ridiculous part. This happened on a train in London, right? And he stole it. This wasn't a daring Ocean's 11 style heist.
That's the
Damn.
first thing I thought about. I was like, were they on top of the train?
No, it's not like he rode a horse up to the train
Damn
and
it.
he jumped on and then he used a blowtorch to cut a hole and
Navigated through a laser field.
exactly and rappelled down. And no, it was sitting on a luggage rack, right?
And he
So-
left it there.
So a 35-year-old jewelry dealer got on the train with a suitcase full of rubies, emeralds, and sapphires and put it on the
gosh.
damn luggage rack.
What?
Wow.
And as any reasonable person would, someone saw that and thought, well, if you're going to be that idiotic, you don't deserve these.
How can you tell the rubies were in there?
Yeah.
Like, was it just a crime of opportunity that he's like, I'm going to steal this dude's suitcase?
Yeah.
And then got home and was like, hamana, hamana, hamana. Honestly, because how did he know? Did the guy just
Yeah.
maybe he walked in and he was a jeweler and had very flamboyant rings all over every finger and
looked rich,
yeah,
yeah.
like a scepter or something and a crown maybe.
Maybe he opened his suitcase to get out a pair of socks and someone saw all the rubies.
Some of them spilled on the floor and he
Yeah, it's like, oh.
scooped them back
Oh,
out oh man, and just all these loose rubies. Tell you what a pain. And then someone saw that and was like, I shall abscond with that suitcase.
Maybe he had the exact same looking suitcase. You know how two people have like black
Yeah.
suitcases?
Oh
Got to
man.
put a little ribbon or something on there?
Right.
And he got to his
Person took it
hotel and
home.
he's
He's
like,
like, oh no! the
oh
wrong
man,
suitcase.
my tracksuit.
And he was also in a rush as he was leaving the train. So they're like, he's running. But he was just in a rush. Maybe that's the defense he's using.
Yeah, but he was caught on CCTV. So
Right.
the police are looking for him. They know what he looks like. But still, it's like, I'm sorry, but if you have a suitcase literally full of rubies, sapphires, and emeralds, and you put it on a luggage rack, you're just asking for someone to steal that
I
from you.
get worried enough that people are going to take my suitcase when I put it on a luggage rack and there's nothing in there but like dirty clothes.
I know. It's like I
Old
would be.
newspapers.
I'd be out like
It's empty.
$5 if you stole my suitcase. But still, yeah, I'm still nervous.
Well, it
at the
begs the
moment.
question, though, that if you are on the train, you do want to transfer precious gems, what is the right way to do it?
Handcuffed to your wrist.
Okay, but then it's even more noticeable.
Yes, but like they're gonna have to go through a lot of trouble.
Surely
They'll
you,
have to cut your arm off, is what you're
Yes.
saying.
which some people might, so you never know.
There's enough gems in
Yeah.
there.
Or here's an idea: maybe don't just get on the train with a suitcase full of gemstones.
Yeah, maybe get it transported.
There are
Possibly.
whole
There's armor-
companies
yeah,
that
armor
do this.
trucks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like there are whole companies devoted to doing just this.
Yeah.
Dude, splurge a little. Get the security.
Yeah, you don't end up with a suitcase full of rubies, emeralds, and sapphires if you're splashing cash out all over the place. Okay, you gotta manage your money.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, hopefully they get to the bottom of it. maybe it was just a mix-up.
Yeah.
It could be. It
We
could be
never
a
know.
hilarious mix-up. And that guy is genuinely angry right now that his clothes are missing.
These dang rubies, I can't wear these.
These crappy fake costume jewelry rocks.
My favorite pair of pleated slacks. They don't make those anymore.
Well, I want to turn your attention to bank branches. So that's something I suppose I could tie loosely to your story by saying that they keep money secure.
They
I'm
do.
laughing
Much-
already.
Right?
Much more secure than just sitting it like on a luggage rack.
That's right. Yeah. Well, you know,
You'd hope.
maybe. You'd hope so. So a lot of bank branches have been closing. A lot of banks have just been saying, people don't use bank branches as much. Close them down. Except in Sheffield, in the UK, Virgin Money has gone the complete other way and completely revamped their bank branches. In one of their bank branches, they have a bowling alley.
What?
They have air hockey, a foosball table, a billiards table, a jukebox, and a cinema screen.
What?
Richard
Yes.
Branson, you glorious weirdo.
Literally.
That's so
Hank
cool.
Scorpio.
Yeah, so, and people who want to come and play bowling can book lanes, and all they have to do is donate to charity.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Oh, wow.
Can you
That is cool.
fill out your home application while bowling? Like, can you do banking while bowling?
I don't know if the bank manager will come over and verse you to a bowling game. They might.
If you get a 300, if you roll a perfect game, you ought to get like your home loan debt completely forgiven.
Ooh,
That's
free.
actually a really cool
that
idea.
that would be a great promotion.
Yeah.
Richard Branson,
Yeah.
we know
Do
you're
it.
listening, so just think about that one.
Yeah, while you're on Nectar Island. Is that the island? Is that his island?
I have no idea.
Nectar.
Yeah.
But yeah, so each of the 7 Virgin Money lounges in the UK offers something different. So a theatre, cinema, a bowling alley, and one actually has an airplane cabin.
Ooh,
Ooh,
an airplane cabin.
So,
So like for
like-
flight simulators or something. Or,
Yeah, I guess so.
Or maybe if you just want to sign your home
So-
loan paperwork in a in a plane.
So
Yeah,
you can
which
hang
I
out
do.
and fantasize about flying economy.
For the rest of your
Now
life.
you owe like $1 million to the bank. You're like, well, this is my life now.
They're like, have fun here because you're not going to have fun in the real world after you sign
Exactly.
this.
I don't quite get the appeal of like, kind of playing in a pretend airplane cabin. It's like I have not ever spent a second in an airplane cabin that I wouldn't rather be somewhere else.
That's true, yeah.
But there's something about it being fake that is kind of fun. I went to the zoo on the weekend, and they have a fake flight simulator cabin thing. So it pretends that they're like flying you to the wilderness,
Ooh.
so you can go see the new tiger enclosure.
Ooh.
So it's actually very cool.
That's cool.
Ah.
I've been meaning to go back since it got, redone.
Yes, it was
Yeah.
very, very cool. When I saw tigers, it was amazing.
So cool.
Yes.
Hmm.
Back to
now,
money.
now you can also do that at the bank.
Yeah, exactly. I wonder when they'll open a zoo.
That's pretty cool.
See, I would go to the bank more if they had a zoo.
See, I think they could make it interesting. Like, if you beat the bank manager at air hockey, you can get, like, a $10 gift card or $10 deposited into your savings account.
Yeah. Let's make it a little wacky.
Yeah.
Get a little zany with it.
Except I can understand why. Like, what if the bank manager's just really, really bad at bowling?
Well, they could just send them to
Bowling
air
school?
hockey school.
Right.
Is there a bowling school?
don't think
Yeah,
so.
who knows? It's neither here nor there
As has been basically everything we've discussed this
in
podcast.
this podcast.
We're sorry, everyone.
Okay, so this disclaimer. This isn't funny. This is one of those non-funny funny monies, but it's interesting. So, if you had to put a value on, a natural wonder like the Great Barrier Reef, where would you even start? Right? It'd be hard.
Yeah, I don't think you really could. Could you?
Well, you'd be wrong, Liz.
Oh, dear.
I think you could because you could associate tourist dollars with it.
Yes, definitely.
Oh.
But there's also like a level of, there's like an unquantifiable value that
Sure.
also goes into it, right? So,
Yeah.
anyways, Deloitte actually crunched the numbers and they put a value on the Great Barrier Reef. They worked with the Great Barrier Reef Foundation, I think. Anyways, so any guesses as to what it is?
$1 billion.
Oh, it'll
billion?
definitely be in the billions.
Okay.
It would have to be. Like, look at how sad everyone around the world got when they realized that we were ruining the Great Barrier Reef.
Yeah.
And it is pretty bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So $1 billion?
Yeah. That's my guess.
I think it's going to be in the billions. I think it's going to be more than $1 billion. Like I'm saying multiple billions.
$56 billion.
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, that's
So-
a lot higher than I. Well,
Yeah.
it makes sense, I guess. That's
Yeah, well,
insane, though.
so the value of the jobs that it contributes to is only 6.4 of those 56 billion.
Only.
Yeah, only. Right? 64,000 jobs and $6.4 billion in 2015 to 16 is what they found. 3.9 billion and 33,000 jobs in Queensland, and 2.9 billion and 24,000 jobs within the Great Barrier Reef regions. But yeah, I thought it was interesting that they were actually able to do that.
Yeah, I think that's cool. But I think it's good as well because hopefully now the people who just think in numbers are like, oh, actually, if we let this
Yeah.
die, it's like going to cost us a lot of money.
Yeah.
At its very base level, like hopefully that will influence some people. Although it should
Hopefully.
be about more
It-
than that.
Yes.
Yeah.
obviously.
But unfortunately, I think that a lot of people think penny wise and pound foolish,
Yes.
as it were, and
I
just
also
don't.
haven't heard that thing.
Oh, well, there you go. Penny wise and pound foolish. So, yeah, like just thinking at the very immediate level, you know,
Yes.
like
You don't see the forest for the trees or whatever.
exactly.
That
It's
saying is.
the
I'm just gonna write all these down.
I know.
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
I've heard of that one.
it's the you know, I think was it Milton Friedman, the economist, who kind of influenced trickle down economics theory, and the question
was
was
so
No.
with smaller amounts, you're more sensible, but large.
exactly,
Yeah.
and or just just basically not seeing beyond a very limited scope, you know, like, and I think he said, you know, the idea of like, well, how will this affect us 50 years from now? And it's like, well, in 50 years we'll be dead,
Yeah, right.
so who cares, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that that's a lot of the thinking around, you know, stuff like this is you could say, okay, it's worth $56 billion. And it's like, yeah, but this coal mine will give us this money now.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And then there's also that tricky issue of like the tourism actually might be hurting it as well, like sunscreen, even things like that. So
Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot of complex issues, I suppose.
wow.
I don't want to lose the Great Barrier Reef. I haven't even
Yeah.
been there yet.
We,
No, neither.
we have to break the law to uphold the law. I don't know why. Just something about the tourism is killing it. Made me think of that.
Adam, for those just listening, is currently stroking a set of ninja stuff. Okay, cool. I also had a little tidbit. Do you want to hear it?
Yes.
I like tidbits.
The most expensive artwork ever sold. The record just got broken.
Oh yeah, it's
Yeah.
Da Vinci, wasn't it?
Yes. A Christ portrait.
Oh,
So-
wait, can we guess?
Yes. Okay, well, I'll tell you what the previous record, just so that no one guesses $1 trillion.
That's what I was going for.
The previous record was for a Picasso painting sold in 2015, 179.4 million.
Is this a private sale or did it go to a museum or something like that?
Uh,
Or did the
they
museum
don't know
sell
who
it?
bought it. Yeah,
I'm-
they think
Yeah,
it's
no,
private.
it would be a private sale, but then as tends to happen, people donate it
Yeah.
to be displayed
Yeah,
in a
right.
museum.
Okay.
$420 million.
I'm going to guess 364.3.
Okay, 450.3, and the winner is Adam.
Yay.
No.
It was won after a 19-minute bidding war.
19 minutes.
19
Is that all?
minutes. Yeah.
Wow.
Imagine
Apparently
just
that's long though for,
That's
for a
for
war.
a bidding war.
Yeah.
Do you reckon people got bored?
That's short for a regular war,
Yeah, this is true.
but for a bidding war,
Yeah.
it's quite lengthy.
Quite lengthy, exactly. All right, well, I'm all tapped out. I have nothing left to give.
He's a shallow husk of a man now.
I'm visibly deflated after that. Cool. So, shall we get Grow Super on?
Yeah, let's
And
do
let's
it.
chat all things superannuation.
So in the studio today, we have Josh Wilson, CEO and co-founder of Grow Super, and Matt Keeley, who is the co-founder and a certified financial planner as well. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're really excited to have you guys in the studio. None of us are superannuation experts, so we have a lot of questions, probably some stupid ones in there.
Yeah,
A lot of
because
stupid ones.
I think we assume that tomorrow will never come, right? That we don't.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we all assume that we don't have to actually plan for anything in the future, and that it will probably all just work out okay. Is that true?
I hope so.
I thought we could start off by, because your platform's a little bit different. It works differently to most super companies. So, I mean, could you just explain to us how it works and why it is, different?
Yeah, sure. I guess to take it back a step from how it works. It's probably informed by our why and why we built it. So everything that we've done on the product level is really a manifestation of the ethos and the philosophy that sits behind it. So when we kind of started the journey to building Grow Super, we wanted to have something that was different, not just in terms of having a digital experience for something that could otherwise be paper. That's just an evolution of stuff that already sits out there. We wanted to build something that would provide genuine financial well-being for real people like us. So what you see in the app is something that, it's not just a bunch of functionality chucked together. It's something that we try and tell people that engage with Grow a story. And that story usually starts with, this is where your life is kind of heading, hopefully to where you're thinking that you are just going to end up okay. But the fact is, for a lot of us, we may not necessarily actually just end up okay unless we take action. So we tell you that story, and then we try and take you through another story and experience to, if you actually do make these adjustments and make these decisions now while you're a little bit younger, or even if you're a little bit older, we can show you a very different outcome, and here's all the tools that we think you'll need to actually start making that change in a way that makes sense, and is really nice and easy to use.
Yeah. So what are some of the tools that your and features that your platform offers?
Yeah, we there's a few I guess novel ones that are a little bit different to some out there. So we've got our automatic spare change feature where you can link your card up.
So cool.
Yeah. It's a really good excuse to get on the beers and save money while you're drinking.
Like, it's only $9.50. But don't worry, I'm saving for my future.
I save like
This needs another excuse.
I saved like $100 tonight in spare change. So that's a really cool feature. But I think going a level deeper than that, in the new version that's come off, there's the first all digital, all real-time customization of your life and TBD insurance. There's the forced classification of yourself to the correct category that you sit within insurance. So for most superannuation companies, they offer this kind of default life and TBD protection, but everyone is classified as a heavy blue or a blue collar worker, which means for people working in an office or don't basically work on a construction site, you can often be paying 60-70% more.
Wow.
Right?
I had no idea.
Yeah, no one does.
Wow.
And I think even we were shocked when we actually looked into it and saw just kind of the disparity in what the default is paying versus what most of the customers actually are. So we actually now force you in real time to just answer a couple of questions. We stole Tinder's UI, so you swipe left and right on a few things.
I don't think we're meant to say you stole.
Leveraged.
We're inspired
Heavily inspired.
You had a mood board.
Yeah.
There's only so many ways you can swipe. Okay.
That's right.
Yeah.
Usually right.
Exactly. So, and when we talk about this kind of financial wellbeing journey that we want to take people on, we talk a lot about price in superannuation. We often talk about the admin fees associated with that. For someone on a $50,000 balance, the disparity between heavy blue where you come in and white collar professional where you might end up is like 88 basis points.
Wow.
Right.
That's
So
crazy.
no one ever talks
That's
about.
nuts.
No one ever talks about that, and that's something that, again, you don't need to know the intricate details of the math that all sits behind it. All we want to do is take you on a journey where just by telling the truth, you're going to have a much better financial outcome on something that, it's like Tinder or something that you're familiar with, and it's not just filling out more paper, and it's all real time. And so that's quite a cool and powerful feature.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think we're all novices when it comes to super. Is that correct for you
Definitely.
guys as well?
Definitely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh God, hopefully not. you guys.
Sweet guy.
Otherwise, we're really screwed.
Super intuition, my favorite industry.
But it is really an interesting product, especially considering, like you said, Adam, a lot of us we don't put the thought into actually, how is this going to affect us when we actually need it, because we're so young now. But you can actually control a little bit about where you invest with Grow. Is that correct? How does that work?
Yeah, that's right. So, we're of the philosophy that basically superannuation is your salary in retirement, and that's really important. So if you think about superannuation, you should go, okay, well, I'm 21 now, I'm 25, I've just left school, just left university, and retirement feels like an eternity away. However, the crazy thing is that we don't know where the goalposts are. So we ask you that question, how much do you need to retire, right? And if I asked you that now, do you know how to answer that?
No.
Good guy.
If you just got your phone and you are listening, then you can literally just say, okay, how much do I want to live off a year? If you've got no idea, how much do you earn a year? Let's say it's $60,000. Divide that by 6%. That usually gives me a rough ballpark of the sort of number that you'd like to live off. That's not financial advice, by the way. But the whole point around investing what you care about, that was really important to us. So you should be able to know where your money's invested. And have it invested in a safe environment. So we allow people to invest up to 15% of their money into areas of the environment or the economic arena that they want to. And for example, that could be green energy, it could be sustainability, property, and technology. So, and what that means is that 85% of your money is managed by Dimensional Fund Advisors. They manage $650 billion. What does that really mean? And it's a big number, but basically Australian Super manage $100 billion. So these guys, 6.5 times bigger. So they're managing your money. You can't get access to them unless you're with a financial advisor. So, we wanted to be the best. That's where our money should be. And so they manage 85%, and then you can allocate up to 15% of your money into what we call tactical tilts.
Wow, because we were only speaking before about, there was a new study published, wasn't there, about how important responsible investing is for superannuation funds. And I was saying I don't know where my super money is invested, like where my fund invests. I just have absolutely no idea, and I wouldn't even know where to start, looking at that.
And the research said that basically 9 out of 10 people assume that their super is being invested responsibly. And I think that that's probably a pretty dangerous assumption. To just assume that all super funds are equal, and whichever one you're with, they must be handling my money really, really well.
Correctly. It's crazy, isn't it, when you think okay, so how does super actually work? You get paid by your employer, you get paid most of it into your bank account, and the other 9.5% goes into your super fund, and you've got no idea what that money does. I don't know, does it sit in cash? What does it even get invested in? Is it in Australia? Or do I own Apple? Yeah, you do. You own shares in Apple, and that's the crazy thing. But you're right. So every super fund that sits out there has a different investment philosophy. And investment philosophy means is how we invest your money. And that is the scary part, is that most of us also have a personal ethics point of view. You want to make sure that you're not putting money towards something that's actually harming, say, or supporting, say, tobacco or slave labour. And that is important. So the benefit about us is that we want it to be transparent. So we do show you the companies that you're investing in within the app. You can see the top 3 holdings. You can see all the different sectors that you are investing in. And what we're finding is people are going, wow, I had no idea I owned Apple or Google, let alone that I also owned some of Tesla, or I might have also owned A2 Milk. That's really cool. I didn't even know I had all of these companies. So when you're hearing things in the news, you go, okay, well, that actually is my retirement wealth. And then there's the other part is, well, what happens if, this money's going up and down? What does that really mean? That the part is that there's businesses out there that are working for you, and it's not all your money just in Australia. And so, we're very big on being transparent.
The interesting thing with the thematic investment that we offer, and the reason that we did, is obviously there's probably an increasing trend in customer appetite to have some kind of control over the specific sectors that their money's invested in. And the balance for us was going, okay, well, look at something like dark green, unlisted property, even technology, right? There's significant risks associated with overweighting your investment portfolio too much to one of those industries.
Right.
Now, I'm personally a value-based investor as well. Like some of my money's in tech. I've got stuff in profitability and in the sustainability options that we offer. But it's important in the context of also getting people to the best retirement outcome that we put in some kind of parameters around, well, you can't just go loading up 100% on tech, right? If you had 100% of your money in Bebo, you get what I mean? It's like we laugh, but it's actually true. Bebo, MySpace, Napster, like the .com bubble, right? You don't want to be overweighted to industries all the time. So that's our job. That's why we did partner with Dimensional, because they give you that scientific backing for the majority of portfolio, and then you're insulated to an extent against any risks. Our technology option right now is shooting the lights out. Next year, might not.
Right.
You know, and there's all this kind of risk associated with that. So the thematic investments give our users a choice, right, and a playground to play in the context of an overall managed and safe kind of environment.
So I couldn't take all my money and be like, you know what, let's take it down to the old casino and let all ride on a hand of blackjack.
Not officially. Yeah, you probably are invested in Crown.
Oh, okay. Well,
There you go.
well, that makes me feel a little better.
I sort of wanted to talk about fees as well. So basically, I know two bits of information about super. One is and one is about fees. It's like just look for the lowest fee option. But I did notice that your stances are kind of a bit different about fees, and you actually place a greater value on your actual voluntary contributions,
Yeah.
which I thought was really interesting because when you're a bit younger, you're not often told to voluntarily contribute to super. It's more like, invest in something in X property or shares external to that. Maybe you can explain a bit about your thinking behind that.
Yeah, so when we, I think one of the articles that we had debate was in the AFR, and they asked us about this, and our kind of perception on this is that there's components, right, to overall net customer benefit, right, and fee is definitely one of those. If you're paying, outrageous prices for something, that is going to have a negative impact on your overall outcome. If you look at the rhetoric in the industry for the past 10, even 15 years, and especially more so as there's kind of been some shifts in the regulatory environment that super's operating in, we're obsessed with fees, right? Everyone's saying fees, the most important thing. You look at the ASIC and ASFA data, right, that's coming out, the average Australian, even now, right, in an environment where we're obsessed with fees, is going to retire, over $300,000 short for a minimum viable retirement income stream.
Yeah.
So
this is crazy. That's
it's outrageous, man.
Yeah.
It's actually outrageous.
You don't want to be praying for death.
Well, I was after Melbourne Cup Day.
just to put that into context, because I find it fascinating how we throw around $300,000, right? Okay, so the way to think about that in retirement, that's about $18,000 a year. Okay, so what's $18,000 a year? Say you have your own home and you are retired, or you don't even have your own home. $18,000 could get you to go overseas on an annual holiday in retirement. It also could mean that you can buy a car, or you could help pay for your grandchildren or your own children in certain ways. So when you hear $300,000, you've got to sort of look at it a different way. What's that from a salary point of view? And that's a lot of money. An extra 18 grand kicker now in your bank account. I'm sure we all wouldn't complain about that.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
So when you put that into context, right, fees, yes, it's an important component. So your fee always has to be competitive. Performance is obviously a component of that. And look, to be quite honest, if again we look at it broadly across the industry, most funds perform pretty well, right? There's percentage differences in one manager one year, one manager another year. Most funds in Australia perform reasonably well. Right, so that's not necessarily a huge point of difference either. And you see some new entrants into the market claiming we're overweighting into this specific industry because we believe there's rapid growth. The reality is that every fund holds the same stocks that you do. You just have a higher asset allocation to that. And we offer funds that have a high growth revenue that actually have a broader kind of investment pool even than some of the other investments that are claiming, invest specifically in this industry for growth. So, if you assume that all these things are weighted equally, what are the two things that as a user I can actually control, right, outside of what a good fund should just be doing? And yet, one year this fund's going to be better, the next year another's going to be slightly better in the performance, and the fee should remain, relatively equal. It's contributions, right, because compound interest is one of the most powerful things that can impact your balance, and insurance and what you're actually paying in those fees that you aren't seeing. And so when funds go around and say, we're advertising this kind of investment cost ratio, have a look at what the other fees are, because it's quite easy to hide fees in super. And one of the fair criticisms of the industry, and one of the things that we didn't want to do, was have fees that are murky, right? There's a lot of unlisted investments that you don't have to disclose, and the headline cost, like going down to the car dealership because he said, I saw you had this car advertised for 10 grand in the paper. He goes, yeah, that's just for the car. If you want the wheels and the engine, right, it's 25 grand.
Right.
Well, yeah, okay. So, you know, the voluntary contribution is a huge feature. And then our job is to look at all these other kind of adjacencies that sit there for a user and go, these are actually places where traditionally funds have made money because they're easy to hide things, it's easy to clip the ticket on things like insurance, and go, well, you know, we're only getting paid by our customers, so it's our job to put the best outcome in front of them. And by doing that, hopefully we'll attract more customers than, you know, trying to cream a few that are, you know, not smart enough to find out those areas. So, yeah, as I said before, it kind of comes back to that mission of genuine financial well-being for people, and contributions are a huge part of that. Yeah.
Which is awesome that you can effectively make these contributions just with roundups and things like that.
Right.
Yeah.
You set it up in the app. You just say, this is how much I want to save each month, and then you can have your spare change running on top of that. $50 a month compounded over 40 years, over $100,000. You know, on a kind of interest rate of about 6 or 7%. That's huge. As Matt said, they're upgrading your car in retirement, having a holiday, whatever it is, a huge, significant kind of amount of money in that context.
Yeah, and it's kind of a difficult question to answer, obviously, but from when you should start actually doing this, obviously with the roundup feature, you know, we could start right now. Is that kind of general advice only? But is that a tip that you would recommend, you know, to start contributing early, or
if you can afford to live without 2 beers a week, which is what we pay in Sydney for a bloody beer, $10 each. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Another way of looking at it, imagine you're 55 and you go to the doctor, you sit down in front of him and you go, look, I'm not feeling too great. Do a test and, okay, look, mate, you've got some heart problems, and it's because you've been neglecting yourself for the past 35 years. So what I want you to do now is you're going to start exercising, okay? You're going to work out 3 days a week. All right, okay, sweet. So out you go, you can't even run 100 metres to begin with. Then you've got your mate down the road who's never really been into it, but he's always ran 3 days a week, you know, and you go, oh, look, I'm starting running. He's going, awesome, I run 5K every morning. And you go, what the hell? So what happens is that people neglect it for about 35 years, right? You know, you get 9.5% in there, which is fantastic, okay? We have the best retirement system in the world. That's really important to understand. But then you try and make up for it in the last 10 years. And then you're trying to jam this money in. And that's what, as my job as a financial advisor, you know, what fascinates me is people come to me at age 55 and they say, hey, Matt, when can I retire? And I'll sit there, I'll be like, you mean to say for the past 35 years, you've been getting out of bed 5 days a week, 48 weeks a year, and you've never known how much you need. And now you think that you're just going to come here and I'll solve it. And then we only have 10 years to make that up. Mm-hmm. So if you're asking what it means is, am I telling you to do it or not do it? That is simply your choice. And we believe in that at Grow. So if you don't want to do it, don't do it. We don't force you to do it. We don't charge you any extra if you do it. But I can assure as shit tell you is that if you do actually do it, it is going to benefit you in the long run.
Now, this obviously it's something really good to start young, and it's going to make a huge difference, you know, say for these guys. I'm 38. It's far too late for me, isn't it? Like I should probably just pack things up.
Yeah, please, mate. Yeah, all right, it's all over.
Like we
That
said
makes
before,
things it makes
pray for
things
death.
so much easier, honestly. Like just knowing that I can kind of ride this out.
No, it's certainly it's never too late. But the earlier you start, you're better, and that's part of our ethos. You know, imagine if we could get people to, you know, like just sort of imagine what it's going to be like if you physically thought, okay, I'm 65, how much do I want a week or a year to live on? You know, if I wanted $2,000 a week, cool. How much do I actually need to get $2,000 a week, and what are the things that I can do along the way? But the earlier you start, the better. And we're very proud, like what Josh said before, when you get paid by the client and the client only, is like, it's just so amazing. You go, well, I wouldn't want that. You know, why is it that way? You know, and therefore you just build this beautiful product that actually saves people money and gets them, a better outcome in the long run. So, yeah, we're certainly very proud of where we are today.
It's the iPhone 4 of super.
Not the iPhone 10?
Yeah. Let's not go there.
Doesn't have facial recognition yet.
More we've turned the Nokia 3210 into the Apple iPhone.
That's an accomplishment right away. So, yeah.
And you were speaking before about some of the kind of issues that are in the super industry. I mean, what do you see as like the main issues, and that, you know, super funds need to innovate? Needs to be innovated, I guess.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, like if you look at, I think the financial services industry in Australia generally, not just in super, even in banking, is faced with some questions at the moment they're still trying to work out, because even 5 years ago, right, before you had some of this technology that enables funds like us to do what it is that we do, what service on top of what they already did, which was manage your money, send you the letter with the update, was the super fund meant to provide to you? Arguably, there could have been a lot more education around, actually, guys, you're not actually going to end up where you think you're going to end up. You should get some help, or these are some strategies to actually start making that difference, definitely. But the drive to have that, I guess, customer focused engagement piece probably wasn't as prevalent as it is now, and we definitely live in a generation that expects to have experiences like that. So from an engagement issue, I think the paradox for a lot of these guys is going, traditionally we've just been funds management businesses. Now we're kind of expected to be customer service businesses and technology businesses. So if you even look at some of the big funds, or even something like, the big banks are going, are we technology businesses that supply financial services, or are we financial services businesses that utilize technology? And trying to answer that it's not something you can do overnight. So when you look at the issues in the industry, are there things they could do a lot better? Absolutely there are, and it really does sit on that customer engagement side. But, trying to, it sounds like I'm going easy on them, but it is kind of understandable to look at and go, you've never had to be customer focused businesses like you're kind of expected to be now. There's none of that inherent culture or heritage of necessarily doing that. And in saying that, a lot of the industry funds have delivered very good outcomes for their members, right? They actually have forced good changes in some ways. Is the default system even manifesting how it probably should be? No, it's not. There's definitely changes that could be made there. There should definitely be a lot more choice in the industry compared to what there is now. But fundamentally, I think most of the funds actually do a pretty good job. There's definitely a lot of room for improvement, which is where we're coming in. In saying that, at the moment, we're only managing 50 million. Right, some of these guys are managing 10s, 20s, hundreds of billions of dollars.
Right.
It's easy to kind of point the finger in that. At the same time, they've done very well to build these businesses that have delivered good outcomes for their members. It's just that, as with everything, there's going to be new and better ways to do things, and how you can actually bring some of those two together is where I think we'll find potential upside for the industry, and then for people, for us. Yeah.
I wanted to chat a bit about the investment options that you have when you deal with your super, because one of the other tips that I've received in the past is, if you're young, just, select growth, basically. So what is the thought process that you can go through if you are trying to decide what investment option you should have in your super?
It's a great question, and from a financial planning point of view, that's the number one to start with. Okay, so I found it fascinating. A couple of funds have been advertising that they're cheap, and the cheap is good, right? So what that means is that come with us and it's extremely cheap. It's like $100 a year, and for that you'll get a 70% growth option. That's how they talk about it. And growth, when you think of growth, just think shares and property. Okay, and you'll get 30% defensive, which means fixed interest and cash. Okay, but we know if you analyse back over the past 100 years that a higher weighting to growth assets has a higher expected return. Now, what does that mean in real point of view? Assume a 70% growth portfolio could get 7%. Well, then they think there's about a 2% premium on a 100% growth portfolio. However, what happens is that if you want to go a little bit riskier, and it is riskier to be in shares and property versus cash and fixed interest, that's pretty obvious, because obviously if a company goes down, then the stock price goes down. So the point is that you need to be prepared that your balance will go up and down over time. All right. So for example, to give you an idea of what that means, imagine in the GFC, right? Some of us weren't invested then, but in the global financial crisis, some portfolios fell over 50%. Okay. So shares fell 50% in value. Does that mean that Google was worth 50% less than it was the day before, when it was actually obviously that point higher? No, but that's how far the shares fell. What do you think happened to a lot of people in that point in time? They sold.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Got scared.
So there's one example where that went down 51%. What do you think happened the next year? How far up did it go?
51%?
Yeah.
54%. So imagine the poor people that crystallise on the way down. So when you're thinking this, yes, if you are, what I like to say, if you are long on time, okay, so if you have a time horizon greater than 5 to 7 years, and short on wealth, okay, so you're obviously, you might only have 50 grand in your account, then yes, you would expect somebody to take a higher weighting to growth assets. All right, that is what I do. Okay, but each individual should choose that themselves. If you are heading towards retirement, there might be a reason that you couldn't handle if your portfolio fell 50% in value. Because if it fell 50% in value, you might not have 2 years to wait to get that money back, or 3 years. So my personal opinion and what we try and do is that if people are long on time, short on wealth, then we like to put them into a higher weighting growth portfolio or give them the option to do that. But once again, I don't want to force you to do that, so you can actually choose your own.
Is it good to just not check and leave it up to the
Yes, that's the best way to do
and
it.
just like not look at it?
I like to look at it this way. So imagine the five of us, we leave here, we go outside, we'll plant an apple tree. That apple tree, we plant it today. You guys ring me up in a year and go, Matt, guess what? It's actually been a year since we planted the tree, so we're all going to go for a $9.50 beer and use the other 50 cents and put it into our super. Okay. We come back, we look at the apple tree, we're like, yeah, wow, it grew like half a foot. We come back in 5 years, doesn't look much better, got no fruit. We sort of forget about it. You come back in 30 years, you no longer work here. Well, maybe you do, all right? And all of a sudden you've got your kids with you and you look and you're like, wow, look at that apple tree. It's just full of apples, and that is investing, okay? So unfortunately, too many people will watch it every day. If you do that, you will go insane. Now, I look after people's wealth for a living. I can assure you, I don't even look at the news. Like what fascinates me is the news, like stock market crash, this and that. It sells papers. Do not read into it. And when, one of my favourite things to do, and this is very nerdy, but there's the paper that comes out right at the start of the financial year predicts the top 50 stocks for the year ahead. Okay, go and do it. It is brilliant. All the stock pickers, this is what's going to happen. At the end of the year, write to each one of them and say, hey, look how many you got wrong. But the next year they get to write that. So my point is certainly you don't want to be looking at your balance every day. And that's what I fear about some of the new entrants coming into the industry. And when they talk about, wow, we invest in X arena, invest in tech, or we invest in this arena, I'm telling you, you will live and die by that sword, okay? And what that means is that if it's going up, fantastic, well done, but it is also going to go down. And if you think you can crystal ball the future, good luck to you. Please come and see me because I'll go with you. If you knew Trump was going to get elected...
I actually did. I won money on that.
But he didn't bet his super. If you knew Brexit was going to happen, these are the things, and in hindsight, everyone's like, oh, that was definitely going to happen. Come on. That is not true. So from the advice is yes, I wouldn't be looking at your portfolio every day.
Yeah, this is like a kind of different, but we talk about acorns quite a bit, and Mark, you have it as well?
Yes, yeah.
So I put a little bit of money in acorns. I don't have the roundup feature set up, and I started like checking every day, and then I think I was only a week in and my balance actually went down, and I just decided to stop checking it, and then I only check it like every couple of weeks now, and it's so much better.
Yeah.
I don't panic.
Yeah. It's interesting though that, something like Grow can actually get people inspired to be checking their own super in that way.
Yeah.
Like it's still better than nothing, I suppose.
That's the thing, I could not tell you how much super I had. I have no idea.
Yeah, I was actually trying to think of how much I had the other day, and I was like, damn, I have to log in.
I can't believe you didn't download the app and bring it up.
or how many funds you have.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah,
it's like I know for a fact I've got two, and I have no idea how to log into one of them to move.
So
that's a big.
Well, you just download Grow. You can do it from there.
Ooh, well then. You've solved my problem.
Consolidate in real time.
That's a really, really good point because the average Aussie has 4 super funds, right?
Whoa.
Right. That's the average Aussie. The average Aussie then between 25 and 35. Now, if I've quoted them wrong, please, they'll tell me. I have no doubt someone will write me an email. But is about 4.5-5 grand in lost super. So that's money that's yours but sits in an unclaimed account, okay? So that's then get eroded by fees. You're paying fees on both sides of the coin. You're paying insurance on both sides of the coin. This is what really, really upsets me. You could be losing 2% a year just in fees across the board, 2% compounded, and this is the unfortunate thing that happens. And so for us, that's why it's all about bringing this to light and giving people the ability to do it in real time, but then to also have the confidence that you're actually also then underpinned by arguably the best fund manager in the world.
That's what happened to me. I had to close one of my accounts because I only had a little bit of money in there that I just had from working part-time jobs when I was a teenager. And they wrote to me to say that all of the fees and the insurance premiums and everything had actually drained my balance. I said, insurance premiums?
I don't have insurance.
Yeah, I had life insurance,
Some
all of
other
these
person.
insurances. And so now I had no super left in that one.
Yeah.
It happens a lot.
Ridiculous. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah. Like, look, I know I'm a dum-dum. I've got this. I got this thing sitting there, and I've done nothing to actually take control of it. But at least I know how stupid I'm being.
That's the first
Yeah,
step.
that's right. First step is admitting you have a problem.
The balance for us was, as Matt said, barely anyone can pick stock markets. Like that's scientifically.
Believe we know.
Yeah, we've
you know
tried.
what I mean? So for us, it's about give you enough control, set and forget, live your life. Like it is not that exciting, right? But dying poor and broke is not very exciting either. So do what you have to, set it up, right? With Grow, you can come in there, you can read stuff. We've got some awesome content in there. Don't come in and look at your balance every day. You can if you want, but get a life. Like, seriously. What you can do is you can come in, see, this is, as I said before, there's a story of this is where you end up if you do nothing. This is where you end up if you do something. Set it up, live your life, right? And then there's cool stuff in there that you can go and see, read. We talk to, successful business people or, finance people, kinds of people that just want to share their stories about some of the mistakes they made, some of the cool things that they learned, and educational stuff that we can help people, bring in that kind of holistic view of their finances. That's the real value that we're offering, is just telling these stories that will help you make better decisions and set and forget and just live your life, and know that as you're going around doing what it is that you do, you're going to be contributing, right? Small, regular amounts, and it's going to make a big difference. And that's the whole point of it. Sitting there freaking out about being broke is not how anyone wants to live their life. Coming in there and checking what you're invested in is not how you want to live your life either. Just set it, be on the right trajectory, and check in, every now and then when you need to. But you have to take control at the start, and once you've done that, it's really not that hard. Yeah.
I wanted to also talk about index funds. So, a lot of outside of super, a lot of people really think that they're an awesome way to invest if you don't have an idea of what specific companies to invest in. What are your thoughts on investing super in index funds?
Yeah, so just to understand what an index fund is, what that means is, like, for example, in Australia, they will choose the top 200 companies and they'll say, how did all those 200 companies perform on a pro rata basis? So Commonwealth Bank is the largest stock in Australia, so that's about 9% of that 200 companies that sit there, so that makes up 9% of the portfolio. So that's what an index is. That's very important to understand first. Indexes came about because they realised that active pickers couldn't outperform the relative index. So if you just did nothing and just chose the index, you'd outperform a stock picker, right? So the point is that yes, it is actually, in my opinion, a very, very good investment approach if you're dealing with your own money in compared to paying for an active manager. That's my opinion. Okay, are there better managers out there that can help you? Yes, we've got one. They won 3 Nobel Prize for it. These guys are the duck's nuts of investments. They were the guys who actually created the index, the whole idea of that, right?
Wow.
So that's what, when you look at us, it's not Matt and Josh investing your money. We go on and partner with them, and that's the cool thing. In super, but it's a bit different. Why? Because we're dealing with such bigger numbers. An index fund means that you'll get the index returns less fees. So let's just make that simple, okay? The index returns 8, but the fees for that index fund are 0.8, right? So all of a sudden you're down to 7.2%. So the best return you can ever get is the index less the fees. So what my concern is that you're seeing super funds come out and go, wow, we've got to be cheap. So to be cheap, we'll just choose an index fund, okay? But the best you're ever going to get is the index less the fees, right? Less your insurance fees, less the admin fees.
Right.
Okay, so we're down to about 6% now. That's not cool, all right? Whereas like the guys that we've partnered with, you're going to at least get the index, but you're also going to get, the premium that sits above there. So if I was an investor outside of superannuation and I only had $10,000, that was me. That was how I started, yeah. So I started the other way. I tried to pick stocks. I did that for a living, and I can assure you I did worse than what I should have done. I then moved across to that space. So I'm a big fan of that, and I do believe there is value outside of super. But inside super, I would be very concerned if my super fund was telling me that they're charging me 1% a year plus insurance fees, and all I was getting was an index.
Yeah, that's really that is really interesting because it is kind of for people who don't know that much, it's sort of like just invest in an index fund, you'll be fine. But there's more to it, obviously, than that. So yeah, that's an awesome, and it's an awesome explanation as well as to what exactly it is.
Another little funny thing, one of my mates is a broker and does a bit for index funds. So just so you know, index funds have to rebalance. So they choose the top 200 stocks on 1 January. Then they go away and they have a party for 3 months. Most of them don't come to work, or 6 months, and then we rebalance back. So some of those stocks would have gone over and above 200. So you might hold stocks that are 205. Blackmore's might have reduced down to number 99, so it's got a higher weighting, better performance, but yours won't be that way. Then on that same day, everybody rebalances. So there's fees that get incurred on that day, and you're actually getting an overweighting. So what the problem with index fund in a super fund is you don't have people actively looking after your best interests. But honestly, if you're outside super, and rather than being investing in Bitcoin and something like that, you're 100% better off going in.
And all my super in Bitcoin.
Another question I had was around Grow Super, and if you don't necessarily know what companies to invest in for your tactical tilt, is that
Yeah.
Do you have to choose that option,
No.
or is it just
No, you don't. So and even with that, you don't choose the specific companies that you invest in. What we offer is a bunch of pre-built funds that have companies from within that sector. So with that one, you would tick, I want to be in the tactical tilt for technology. I'll select that one, and we say it's got Apple, Tesla, whatever in it, and then you can just slide up on your dial up to 10% for that stock, and up
awesome.
to 15% for in total for all of them, and that's that. So you don't go around individually saying I'm going to load up on Apple, Google specifically. You just say I'm going to invest in the technology fund that holds them, and then adopts that same strategy, which kind of that hybrid. It's not a true index. They actually index and then just try areas of value on top of that, so that you're in with a shot for a premium return.
How often do you update the companies within those funds?
Because we don't manage those funds. There's actually teams of people that that build those funds. That's their everyday job.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So the core portfolio options that we offer have over 8,000 securities that actually sit within them, and they're actively monitored and built.
What's in the future for Grow?
That's an interesting question. Look, we've got a pretty mapped out kind of roadmap of where we want to get to, and it's quite simple for us because it really is related back to those core company values. We want to make a difference to as many people as we can. So you'll see that the super fund offering that sits out there now will continue to improve and find more ways to deliver more value to more people. And then we'll start playing in some of kind of those adjacencies around super. So what can we do with insurance within super? And, there was an article a couple of weeks ago about us bringing out a pension product.
I saw that,
because we can solve the same problems there. So we'll continue, I think, to just expand the areas in which we're trying to help people. And when you look at our fund, we always get kind of tagged as a millennial fund. We're not. By nature of the marketing that we do, we get more people in that demographic coming through. I hate the word millennial. I don't even know what that actually is. I think it's bullshit. That's like saying that everyone in that age group thinks and acts the same, and that we like.
Yeah.
You do.
Just old and grumpy.
I think it's one of the most overused phrases.
It's ridiculous.
Like, there's so many new, innovative, amazing companies, but as soon as I hear we really target millennials, blah, blah,
yeah,
I'm
it's like
as a millennial, I kind of sit there and I'm like, well, you don't know me.
No.
yeah, it's like some 60-year-old in a boardroom, like, we need to get to these millennials.
Yeah.
Pokemon.
Exactly, like Emperor Palpatine kind of thing.
Harumph.
There's two funny things I think with that. Like, if you profile people in that way, if I said to you, we're gonna profile these we're going to profile women both between 45 and 55 that have an interest in politics. They're kind of broadly similar people using the same kind of methodology. One's Julie Bishop and one's Pauline Hanson. They're nothing alike, ideologically. Yeah. So we try not to do that. What we present is a values-based company. It's like, if you value transparency, if you value clear and honest communication, if you value a company that's not going to take kickbacks and that's always just going to act in your best interest, then we're a company for you. And that doesn't discriminate by age. It doesn't discriminate by gender. It actually doesn't even discriminate by ideology. We're just going to give you the best that we can, and that's the value that we offer. And that's actually hard sometimes to communicate to people. Like sometimes I would kill from a marketing point of view to be just like, we're the fund for tech, we're the fund for green. It's not that we disagree entirely with that, but can you always give the best outcome for a customer just looking through that lens? Arguably, no. And we just want to put the best kind of outcome for people in front of them. And that can be a hard message to actually get across, because A, sometimes people don't know just how bad it was before, and B, we want to make your security in retirement and financial life a lot better. It's not that sexy, so
Right.
It's a challenge for us, but we really want to hold strong to that, because we believe in the long run, that message will get out there and we'll make a lot of change for a lot of people. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, unfortunately, we've come to the end of our time. So we just have our kind of 3 questions that we ask all of our guests. The Finquisition, as we like to call it.
They're deeply personal and really uncomfortable.
Excellent.
No, they're not. But yeah, the first question is, what do you like to invest in? Maybe take turns.
Investing in. I'm not a huge investor. It's going to sound really arrogant. I invest a lot in myself and businesses. I think that we
stole
run.
my answer.
It's just more efficient that way.
No, it's actually just more like when we do this, we both have a couple of business interests. So when I was 21, I was 50 grand in debt because I'd started my first startup, which thankfully came good and went well. And again with Grow, we kind of funded this from the start, and so we don't believe that passive kind of income where you're just chucking it in. We load up and back ourselves to do things. I'm not saying that that's actually a good way for everyone to do it, but yeah, from an investment point of view, that's probably where most of my money goes. That and the Jack Daniels industry, I think.
A major backer.
Yeah, shout out. We should get a sponsorship deal.
Yeah, mine's very similar. I spent some time with a great mentor in the States working over there, and he spoke to me. He said, imagine if you were 75, 80 years old and you're sitting on your deathbed and you're reading this book. You get up to chapter 4, the kid's 20 years old, and you realise it's you. And you go, all right, now there's another 10 chapters to go in this book. Is it really worth reading? And would you continue reading that book or not? And it actually changed my life from that point forward. So for me, from a finance point of view, yes, I do own shares and that. I'm a bit boring in that space, and not boring, but I'm a financial planner, so of course I do. But most importantly, I invest in businesses. So I'm a big believer on building businesses, but that is not for everyone. Josh and I will vouch for that. I think everyone has a certain ability, but I wouldn't recommend everyone go down this path because it's not as rosy, and startup land is certainly not what everyone claims startup land is. We don't even really believe in startup land. If you're going to run a business. A fish and chip shop is a startup for a week. After that, make money. But the thing that I love to invest in is experiences. That's where I get my return from. So I'm off to New Zealand in a couple of weeks to go kayaking, with my girlfriend for 5 days, and we'll just get out and adventure, no technology. So for me, experiences and building businesses.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's actually a really good point about the whole book. I don't know if I would read the last year of my life.
Wow, let's take that off air. Yeah.
This is about to turn into an intervention for Mark.
It's just been saving for a house.
No wonder you're doing a podcast on superannuation.
Cool. So what's the best financial advice you've ever received?
The best financial advice I've ever received. Wow.
It can be from yourself to yourself.
All unread.
The best. This is it's literally just going off the cuff here, but one of my most memorable moments as a financial advisor, I was out seeing a client out near Goulburn, a farmer. He's got 3 lovely daughters, and he's about 55. Used to play in the NRL, and he said to me, "Matt, look, how am I doing?" I said, "You're doing all right, Ash. You're doing really well, actually, to be honest. You're making enough money. I don't think you're ever going to be a billionaire, but things are good." He goes, "Good. Well, I don't want to hear from you unless something goes wrong. Other than that, I just want to make sure that I'm happy. So as long as I've got enough money to do the things in life that I want to do, then that's all it's about." And so from a financial advice point of view is that, you can live to work or work to live, Money is literally a byproduct. We've developed money. Money did not exist a million years ago, okay? We've created that. So the best advice I could give is don't just choose YOLO, but, you know, it's not cool to be poor.
I
But
believe you just said that.
We're targeting millennials.
Anyway, but my point is that make sure you do get to enjoy that money, so don't just waste it. And that's my biggest fear when I see people, you know, I go, you know, we want now, and so we run off and just buy it now, but it doesn't really give us anything. So that's why I invest in experiences, not really clothing, as you can probably see.
Yeah, mine's probably similar, just from mum and dad, and maybe not even an explicit conversations, just in how they've lived their life. Just similar to Matt, like the family and experiences, and being able to look back. When I started out working, I was a teller in CommBank down on Bridge Street in the city under the ASX, and the amount of sad rich people that you would see come in with like $3 million in there, you'd ask them what they did on the weekend. Not much. You know, you hang out with your family? No, don't. You know, divorced, kids don't really speak to me. Bloke probably drives, you know, a rangy sport and lives in a massive house, and he's alone and sad. So, you know, I think the achieving a level of financial independence where you can, time is actually your greatest asset. It's not money, it's time. So if you can achieve a state of your life where you're free to invest your time how you want it, I think that's the greatest kind of achievement that we can get, to invest your time into things that matter to you and might actually help other people. And you can actually just go to bed at night and feel satisfied is a pretty cool feeling.
Yeah. Awesome advice. Yeah, that's great. So the next question then is, what's the worst financial advice you've ever received?
All unread.
Still owe some money to some very scary people.
Yeah, they're going to take my thumbs up.
The worst financial advice. The worst I've seen is not pay down your credit card debt, but keep some money in savings, right? So keep $5,000 in savings, in cash, earning 2% a year, and have 10 grand in credit card debt, right? And they'll go to me, I'll go, okay, so that's 2% return on the cash. And they'll go, yeah, I know, I get it, mate. And 17% return, is the interest rate on the credit card. And I go, no, it's a hell of a lot more than 17%. Well, how? The reason it is because you're paying that 17% after you've been taxed.
Right.
Okay, so you're paying 17% after you've paid 39 cents or 34 cents to the government in tax. So the real actual cost of that is about 32% a year.
Wow.
Right. So fantastic, isn't it? Great advice. I'll keep my money in 2%. I'll also then pay tax on that 2% to the ATO. So my real return there is only about 1.5%. But I won't pay down my credit card, and the guaranteed rate of return is 32%.
Wow.
That is the
That's
worst bit of
insane.
financial advice you could ever get.
Wow.
My one's a little more philosophical, which is money will get happiness, which I think we've just discussed. But
Yeah.
it won't.
Yeah.
Yeah, bloody helps, but it's not. it's not the be all and end all. And
Right.
I've seen plenty of people live pretty miserable lives with a lot of money. Yeah.
It seems like, as always, the truth is somewhere in between, right? It's don't go overboard and, don't overplan.
There's a balance to it. If you can find a way, if what you need to spend is 50 grand a year, 100 grand, whatever it is, and that frees you up to go be like my dream's to go and do like a great white shark documentary one day. Like literally
nice.
just get on a boat and go follow great white sharks around for a year and dive and film that stuff without having to worry about existing.
Only worry about the sharks.
Well, I will be worried about existing, but not financially. I'll be paying very good health insurance. But that's the dream, and that's actually happiness. It's just being free to not worry about it, not to hoard it up and build your whole identity around being a rich wanker. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, guys, for being on the podcast. Some really actionable tips here for listeners and some really good advice just in general. So thank you for your time.
Thanks very much, guys.
So again, a big thank you to Grow Super for coming in to chat to us.
Yeah.
We'll put all the notes on the notes page, so you can find out more about them and how they work.
Yeah, we've got a great review of their product on the page on Finder, so we can link that as well.
Yeah. So just before we close up shop, we have to talk about the ASX challenge because it's actually finished.
Oh man.
You know what? I hadn't looked until this morning.
Same.
And now that I've looked, I'm actually really, really annoyed. So most people who have been following the podcast know that my main competitor, the main person I care about in this game is I just want to beat Mark. And literally he came 4th and I came 5th.
Oh, ouch. Did I come
Literally.
dead last?
Yes, you did. Yes. $51,093.07.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was hamstrung a little bit by the fact that I did absolutely nothing for about the last 3 weeks of the challenge. Well, hamstrung, or I don't know, considering how I was performing, maybe that helped me.
But the annoying thing is, actually, out of the people playing from Finder, though, we beat everyone.
Ooh. Well, I suppose that's a win in itself, right?
Oh, I'm gonna gloat in the office today.
Wow. So the top 3
We're listeners.
listeners and
our glorious editor.
producer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my final amount was 55,611, and Mark's was $56,098.
Which is awesome because I actually fell a bit lower the
did
last
you?
yeah. And then it just had a last minute rally. Do you want to talk about, do you know what your stocks were? Like, do you have it
Yeah.
open?
Can you finally share with us
Yes.
what your strategy
Okay,
was?
so basically my strategy was always kind of buying in the like mineral and gas industries.
Ooh, okay.
Because they're kind of like they're not really too affected, and so I would always look at the graph when I would pick a stock, and if it had generally been doing quite okay, and if it had like a dip recently, then I would buy that, and then generally it would go back up.
Interesting.
Yeah, and
okay.
it actually worked really well. So only 2 of my stocks ended up in the red.
Wow.
So I also bought A2M because
Oh,
it was
yeah.
doing so well.
Yeah.
As did I.
Yeah, so I had like a collection of like really random ones. I would read out like the little 3-letter acronyms, but it probably won't mean anything. But maybe we
Yeah.
can put like an analysis like on the podcast page
Yeah,
and people can
we
have a
could-
look.
We can
Ah,
put up our
interesting.
profile, our portfolios maybe.
Yeah, that's a good
put
idea.
up some
And
screenshots.
look,
Yeah.
we'll also chat with Ghoulies and Systematic FC.
Yeah, Ghoulies
about
is rearing
what
for another
exactly.
fight.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know already. But Ghoulies came out on top on this one.
Ghoulies is
Just
our
edged out Systematic FC.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's our inaugural winner for the Finder Money Podcast Share Market Game, ASX Share Market Game.
What have you won? Our burning
Jealousy.
rage and jealousy. Yeah, that's what you've won.
You had that from the beginning though.
Urge to kill rising.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, well done to Ghoulies. Well done to Systematic FC as well. Mid-game entry, smashed it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely smashed it.
And well done to third place, Splusseldorf.
Our illustrious editor.
Yeah,
Yes.
smashing it. Yeah, and I think like on my side, I had a stock picking book that I was using.
Really?
Yeah, that I bought that earlier in the year just to see, like, because I was going to invest in some shares and I just wanted to know get some analysis, and then I just cross-checked that with this. There's this market consensus report that comes out, and it's like brokers, and they just kind of give you their like, oh, I would strong buy this and I'd strong buy that. So I just, as soon as I saw a strong buy in that, I would just see if it was mentioned in the stock book, and then just buy it.
For some- when
It's
you-
so legitimate, your strategy.
Yeah,
Mine-
no,
I was
really
like,
not.
the other thing I forgot to mention is I would buy in a certain industry, but I would only pick ones of like kind of funny names. That I'm like, this is cool. So
The funny name strategy.
Yeah.
yeah,
That's a strategy.
When you say
Sort of.
stock picking book, I'm imagining like some book, like some sleazy book that also teaches you to play Texas Hold'em.
While you're
that?
picking stocks.
Yeah, was
Yeah.
it that sort of book?
No, it's actually it's one that gets released every year by this kind of really well-known stock analyst.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, it's really good. I think it's literally stock picks for 2017. I think that's the format. I'll figure it out. But I ended up just diversifying. I had A2M, which did really well for me. That made me $2,000. Just that. Some resources stocks. I can't remember what this second one is. Car sales. Car sales is doing
Oh, wow.
really
Yeah,
well
it
for
has
me
done
at a
really
time.
well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then it just dropped last minute. So I only made just under 500 from that. The other one that did really well for me was Gem, which is an education company. And then the one that actually was the biggest emotional roller coaster was Westpac.
really,
Yeah.
The big banks. I think I had one of them originally, and then I got out of it. But my highest stock was actually a software and services stock.
Huh.
Oh,
Aconex.
yes, I think I actually had that at first.
They made me like $2,000. It was great.
Yeah.
Good ride. Thank you, Aconex.
But yeah, so we finished the average portfolio value for our league was 54,306, and the highest league was the lithium team, and that was 79,000.
What, the battery guys?
Come
I
on.
don't know, maybe.
How did we get beat by batteries?
Maybe they only invest in battery technology.
Maybe. Yeah, that's actually insider trading, guys.
Yeah. Well done to everyone who participated, and thank you for everyone who joined the game. We're actively considering what the next challenge will be. There's grumblings of Forex game, perhaps. Maybe we'll just have a road race.
Oh, I like that. Let's do that.
No, Forex would be interesting. It's such an interesting kind of market. I just think I'd be terrible at it.
Yes. Well, okay.
Yes, you would.
I think so too.
So the good thing about it is, if we do a Forex game, we can trade Bitcoin.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That'd be
So we can get in with the roller coaster ride of Bitcoin.
Yeah,
Oh,
it definitely
okay,
is a
let's do
roller
it.
coaster because the value recently dropped.
$1,000
Yeah,
in
but then
24 hours.
But then it went back up, like pretty close to the value that it was. But that would be quite terrifying if
Oh
you
my
bought
God.
Bitcoin at like $9,000 or whatever it
Yeah,
was,
we-
and it dropped $2,000.
Right.
Yeah, we have a friend in the office who has some, a decent Bitcoin holding, and he must have absolutely been pulling his hair out.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Like, he's constantly turning around to me like, look what's at right now. Look where it is.
Yeah.
So that must have been a rough weekend for him.
Right. Yeah. It is just literally a roller coaster ride.
Yeah.
Like the charts, when you compare them to another, like a normal currency pair, it's wild.
Yeah.
So,
Just
Yeah.
scary. Ugh.
but yeah, we'll update you guys when we find out what the new challenge is. I dare say it might be in the new year that we start tackling something new
Yeah, I think we need some time to relax.
to wash the stink of failure
That's right.
from our bodies. Well, thank you again to everyone. Thank you for all of our listeners and to Grow Super. Thank you, Liz and Adam.
Thank you,
Thank
Mum.
you.
And we'll catch you all again next week.
Thanks for crack-a-lacking.
Thanks for listening to the finder.com.au Money Podcast. Head over to www.finder.com.au/podcast to find the show notes for this episode and more great episodes. The Finder Podcast is intended to provide you with tips, tools and strategies that will help you make better decisions. Although we're licensed and authorised, we don't provide financial advice, so please consider your own situation or get advice before making any decisions based on anything in our podcast. Visit finder.com.au to learn more about how we're regulated, to compare your options, or to access our terms and conditions.